From Playerbook Studios, it's the Quarterback Code podcast, where we interview offensive coordinators, QB coaches, quarterbacks, and anyone who can add value as we decode the most difficult position in all of sports. Please be sure to follow and subscribe here on Spotify and join our offensive coordinator community at playerbook.com.
Football is such an intricate game. One of the most important things you have to do as a coach is find ways to simplify it. And being air raid, it's explained simply. It's a clear board of what is needed for players to be successful in.
In this episode, we'll continue our conversation with Coach Chris Leak. While we got to know Chris in part one, today we dive into his post-playing days, specifically around quarterback development, his systematic approach to ensuring kids are mentally learning what they need so they can take advantage of their opportunities on the field. We learn about his QB training formula, his pre-snap must-have questions, and of course, our rapid-fire questions that we ask all of our guests, all here today on the Quarterback Code.
Well, I started my quarterback academy back in 2008, actually, and this is still when I was still playing football, still in my career. It was something that I knew I wanted to do after my career, and so I started back then, and I understood that I wanted it to grow and grow as I got towards closer and closer to retirement. But it's something that I do year round. Youth, middle school, high school, college, and pro guys. I've worked with guys up Kirk Cousins all the way up to with the Minnesota Vikings, all the way obviously to the youth kid just starting up. So I've had guys all in between college, high school, and middle school, and I really during the fall season is when I do my offensive consulting, which is where kind of like you fall into as far as when I start looking at your information and things of that nature, and how can I better help high school coaches, middle school coaches implement an air raid off. And so that's what I do during the fall. During this time in the fall, we're in mid-season now, so we're pretty much in mid-season form. But understand helping coaches who have, sometimes these coaches for 30 years have been wing T coaches. And helping them understand how to implement a passing offense, how to teach their quarterbacks, what drills to run, so all those things are things that I help coaches out with now on high school level and middle school level here in Florida. And I think I cover right now about 22 counties. So it's a lot of driving, a lot of busy time, a lot of football going around. Yeah. But so yes, I mean it's full-time gig. And one of the things I would say for anybody that wants to get into this style of coaching is one of the first things that I did was I went to coach at my alma mater, Florida. I went to be a quality control, and I was a graduate assistant under Will Muschamp, who is one of the geniuses when it comes to defensive football. And so my actual first coaching job was a defensive quality control guy. And because the one thing that I wanted to learn was how did defenses prepare to stop offenses like the ones that I wanted to implement, and how did they study quarterbacks? How did they scout quarterbacks? So I could better when I went back to the offensive side, I understood what was going on in the other room. So that was one of the biggest. I would say that's for anybody that wants to get into the coaching, whether it's an offensive coordinator, quarterbacks, learn the other side of the ball first. Learn how they prepare, how they scout, what they look for, because it's going to help you so tremendously when you get to the other side of how to prepare your guys for the opponent. And because it kind of gives you what their playbook is and how they attack certain style quarterbacks, how they attack in certain situations, so forth and so on. So I was able to learn from under Will Muschamp, who's I think was a part of that Georgia 2 national championship team as their D coordinator. So it's one of the genius minds in the game of football on the defensive side.
Yeah, no, and it's such a common theme that when I talking to coaches over the years and just hearing interviews, I'm like you, I love just listening to great coaches give interviews because you can get some real good nuggets. But that seems to be a pretty common theme that, if you want to be a great play caller, maybe you should spend a couple seasons, if not a lot of seasons, studying defense, and vice versa, right? You really got to know the opponent. And that's another great example of it. Okay, so talk to me. You've been in a lot of systems. Obviously, I love air raid, and I'm just curious, like how you came to picking air raid kind of as your base over. You know pro style. You've played in pro style. You've
Right.
won passing titles in
Right.
different styles. So why air raid over the other styles, or maybe it's a mix. Maybe you made your own kind of thing going, or
Well, I just, it's something that I would say that I'm passionate most about is being in shotgun, hurry up, no huddle offense. 2 minute
yeah.
style. That's what I love to do. That's what I gravitated towards. And because I think that's why I saw from a as a player and as a coach, that's where I saw an offense having the most success. It just was. It just
Hmm.
that was my experience with it. And keeping the defense more vanilla, understanding, making it easier for your players, making it easier for your coaches, from a teaching and technique standpoint, simplifying the game. Because I think that's one of the things that football is such an intricate game that one of the key things, one of the most important things you have to do as a coach is find ways to simplify it. And being air raid, no huddle shotgun, hurry up, that's one of the beautiful things about is that it's explained simply, and it's the technique that you use is it's a clear board of what is needed for players to be successful in. And once you understand it, it's one of those things that you just don't forget. It's hard to
Hmm.
and you can take what you learn in air raid and apply it to other offense. I think that's one of the things that makes air raid, better than other offenses because there's some offense where you can't do the opposite. Air raid, you can really take it to any offense and go and explore in those offenses and do a lot of the same things. So I think the adaptability of the air raid offense also is one of the reasons why I chose it.
No, I agree. 100%. It's so easy to teach, and like you said, the groundwork that it sets.
Yeah.
You said it's in every other offense. It's not the other way around, right? Like
Yeah.
people are
Exactly.
taking from the air raid every chance they get. All right,
Yeah.
cool. So you got quarterbacks from youth, middle school, all the way up through college. Do you have an overall system of like how you take them through, like if you get them in youth, this is kind of like what I have envisioned through all the way through high school, or is it more like I kind of know what to do, so I'll do it when I feel it, or like just kind of talk to me about your philosophy.
Yeah, quarterback development to me is a system of emotion and adjustments. And you have to meet the player where they are in order to be able and understand where they are mentally, physically, emotionally, in order for you to get the most out of them based on the time commitment that you have with them.
Mhm.
Because some kids you might have for a season, some kids you might have for a week, some kids you might have for a couple of days, some kids you might have for a month. So it depends on the commitment level of the parent, of the player, as well. Because obviously, I mean, players now, multi sports, some days they're doing football, some days they're doing baseball, some days they're doing hockey. So so you have to be understandable. Okay, how good can I help this kid get based on the time commitment that he can spend within the craft? And so that's one thing I think that coaches need to understand is, okay, what is the commitment level? Where are they at now? And you have to meet them where they are. And you will get more out of that player if you understand that first and foremost. And once that's set, yes, you can put in whatever technique drills that you have. Like that's how I formulate it. That's how I format my quarterback's regimen. Is where are you right now in your understanding of the game, technique wise, throwing motion, footwork, and so I build it up. I mean, literally individually.
Love it.
I tell high school coaches this a lot and often is that you have to. A lot of coaches in high school treat the quarterback position like wide receiver, running back, linebacker, like a Mike linebacker or safety. And I always have to give them the little nugget like, you need to make sure you treat the quarterback position like you would the kicker because it's
Mm.
such an individualized position when it comes to mindset, technique, emotions, the physicality of it, all those things. Like it's a different position on the field because there's a certain way that you have to talk to kickers that coaches know. There's a certain way to train them, to prepare them. It's the same for a quarterback. Receivers and running backs are kind of intertwined, right? You can teach them kind of in the same format in the same way. Quarterback is different, and that's one of the things I try to really stress to high school coaches that I work with, and it's really helped a lot of coaches kind of take a seat back and like, okay, I have to make sure that I'm looking at this position individually than all my other different positions from a weight room perspective, from a preparation, pre-practice, post-practice, all these factors, and that's really helped. A lot of the coaches that I help in that process. But
I love it.
yeah, it's been fun. Yeah, it's been fun trying to just help people get to that point and just understand that this is a position that needs to be looked at individually.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. That's a great point, and I love that way you say it because it's not a regular position. They're different, and they need to actually think of themselves as different because they're
Yep.
going to have to put in more work than
Right.
everybody else, if nothing else. Hey, talk to me about as a quarterback coaches that you're a quarterback coach of a high school kid and you're not you're not calling the plays for that kid, right?
Right.
I talk to a lot of quarterback coaches and there's like this balance between like, hey, obviously I'm here for technique to some degree. Some quarterback coaches like try to teach reads and progressions. Some like, oh, I don't want to mess with the high school coaches things.
Right.
I might tell them something different.
Correct.
As a quarterback coach myself, I want them to at least understand like here's what reads are and here's how you go through them. If nothing else, at least understand that is maybe the most important to me. It might be the most important part of being a quarterback. Honestly, is like
Right.
making the right decision. So I don't know. Maybe you could talk to me about the balance. Do you get into that? Do you try to like
Oh, absolutely.
teach
Yeah.
them how to do reads?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing that I do is learn the playbook. I get with
There
whoever the
you go.
play caller is, the head coach, the offensive coordinator. I can tell you right now, I got probably like 6 playbooks in my head from working with different coaches and different quarterbacks. So I learned the playbook, and sometimes thankfully the terminology is the same, but sometimes it's like, okay, this is a post, this is a corner, but it's the same thing in different ways. But
Right.
so that right there is probably the biggest misstep that sometimes that coaches can come across. But other than that, once you learn the offense and you learn what the expectation of the play call, whoever the play caller is, whether it's the head coach or they have an offensive coordinator, you learn that person's expectations, what they want them to do, and then it's your job as the quarterback guy or the quarterback coach to help them sell as much as possible by what their coach wants them to do,
Mm,
because it's not your job to come in and teach them reads, even though, hey, you could be teaching them the more advanced type of read. Hey, the one thing that I make sure my quarterbacks know, you have to do what your coach tells you to do. You have to trust in him. You have to trust in his system because this is how he sees it. And sometimes, and you might have a different opinion as a coach, like, okay, I would run this differently, but it's their offense, it's what they believe in, and you have to be 100% in, because the last thing you want is your quarterback doubting what he's being taught at his high
mhm.
school. And so it gives them more confidence when you're on that boat 100%, and that you're teaching those things that what the coach wants and his expectations are on those reads. Now, if you want to say something about, hey, if you want to give a recommendation, I would say go ahead and do it to that coach in the play call and say, hey, hey, you run stick this way. Hey, I ran stick this way and it's worked out pretty well. This may be
Mm,
something you want to consider. So, so it's little things like that you can put out there, but at the end of the day, learn what the coach wants, learn his expectation, and teach that to your quarterbacks, and they'll relate, because the relationship between that quarterback and his coach is more important than the one that you have.
for sure, for sure. And then I got obviously me. I got a lot of middle school coaches, so same type of question, but now you're still not their tackle coach, you're still not their play caller, but you're a quarterback coach getting them ready for high school. Maybe they're not even playing football yet,
Mhm.
tackle. Are you trying to teach those kids reads and progressions just like in general?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, and how do you do that?
Yeah, I teach them. So what I do, and the great thing about Florida is that just about every quarterback does 7-on-7 in the off season. So you get to, so there is that advantage being where I am. because you get to teach stick, shallow, forwards, all those things, cross, sail. You get to teach all those concepts, which are just really just basic concepts in football
Hmm.
that they are eventually going to run some type of the
Right.
same concept down the line. And so my biggest thing is that when I teach the quarterbacks those concepts and they say they haven't played high school ball, and I'm teaching them these base concepts, screens, RPOs, just basic stuff. I do it so it's not the first time that they heard it when they see it.
Right.
When they see it, yeah, we might have talked about it, might have called it something different, but here's your foundation for it. So, for instance, one thing I go through, I have a quarterback board work like sheets, like it's about 12 sheets that my quarterbacks have to do for about. I make them probably do it probably like for the entire month, every week for an entire month. And what it helps them in the teaching of, okay, here's my footwork for. I break down individual routes first. Like a hitch does this drop under center, but it's also this drop in the shotgun. A slant is this drop under center, is this drop in the shotgun. So breaking down stuff like as simple as that can really help them for whatever offense they end up going to. If they go to an under center offense, guess what? Coach taught me here's the route that I have. Here's the under center drop for it. Or I'm in the gun now. Here's the drop for this route. So those route concepts, those individual routes are obviously in concepts. And so they start to tie in, okay, this is the drop for this route. This route is in this concept. So it almost automatically teaches them what the drop is for certain concepts in different offenses. So it gives them a baseline and a foundation. That's my biggest thing, especially with middle school kids, is building them a foundation first. So that yes, the play call changes. Some are numbering systems, some are word systems. It all depends. Obviously, that stuff changes from based on offense to offense and coach to coach. But giving them a foundation of here's what the general term, so that you can have a general football terminology conversation with the coach. That's kind of where I'm trying to get to for a kid. Is that you can go talk to a college coach, you can go talk to a high school coach, and you can have a football conversation because as we all coaches know, football is its own language. It really is. It really is its own language. And I want my quarterbacks to have a foundation where they can go and speak the football language to where whoever coach that they're about to start playing.
No, that's huge. And that's like literally in my middle school program. That's the entire message. Like we just want to give you guys an opportunity when you get to high school to
Yeah.
compete. And if you don't know these basic things, and you're going to a school that throws, and nowadays, like the majority of these high schools are throwing the ball around. Yeah, if you don't know this stuff, then you're going to just, unfortunately, you will just get skipped over for the kid that they can trust until you prove yourself. So that's great, Coach. I love it.
One of the I'll put this in there too, because one of the things, and I give one thing I give my parents is Bill Walsh's keys to being a successful quarterback, and his first thing that he said was he called it functional intelligence, and it's in his book, and it's a pretty word for pretty much being able to multitask in highly stressful situations, and like that was one of the first things he looked at in order to know if somebody could even play the position. So being able to understand and multitask a lot of information is one of the things that I definitely help with kids that want to play quarterback.
Yeah, processing. I don't know. I don't know if there's if I could pick one quality in a quarterback, it'd probably be just being able to process stuff fast. I mean, you got it nailed it on the head. All right. Last thing on quarterback reason progression. Do you have a certain way that you like quantify if they're understanding, or is it more like the eye test, or I don't know. There's probably not a perfect answer to this. I'm just always curious how coaches are like seeing if their kids are understanding what they're even teaching them.
Right. So that's kind of what my board work drill sheet is. It's like it tells me where they are right now as far as understanding. Okay, do you even know what drop to take for a hitch, or what drop to take for a slant? Do you even know? And so that gives me, or do you even know what middle field open, middle field close, one high, two high? Like, do you know what a 4-2 box is? So this drill booklet that I give all my quarterbacks, it's the start of me helping me understand this is where you are right today. And okay, so that gives me what I need to start teaching them. That really helps me kind of individualize where I need to focus for that individual player.
No, I love that. And it's, it's such a great point for coaches that are hearing this, is to just get it down on paper, get some actual, data coming back, flowing between you guys. There's a lot of conversations that go on, and a kid can look you in the eye and tell, oh yeah, and even
Oh,
tell
yeah.
you like the right routes and the right progression and the
Yeah.
right order. But then you get on, game day, and all of a sudden it's like you guys never even spoke. So
Yeah.
getting actual data on paper.
Yeah, writing it down. I make all my quarterbacks write it down. Like even their reads. Like it's one thing I learned from Mark Trestman, and if people understand how Mark Trestman called plays, I mean it's every play is a paragraph, right? So in the way he taught me in the offseason, he was like, well, he told me, well, Chris, this is what I want you to do for every play in the offense. Every play in the offense, he made me do this, and there's thousands of plays in the playbook, right? I had to write down, and some came out to pretty much a paragraph. I had to write down every single thing that I did on every play, like this is what my drop is. Writing down, okay, here's my read. This is what I'm looking at during this portion of my drop. This is where my eyes are during this portion of my drop. So I had to break down exactly what I was doing, every single part of the play. And so that's although it's more simplified now, as far as it's not a paragraph, it's more of a sentence, for most of my quarterbacks. But there's a drop, read, progression that I make my quarterbacks write out, because when you write something out, you have to think about it, you have to say it in your mind, and it's an extra rep of doing it. So it's just as important to me for them to do it physically. Them doing it physically is important, but doing it mentally in multiple different ways is really important for me too. Seeing it on the screen, writing it down, saying it, doing it, like those are reps. Those are reps that in preparation that they get. And the more you do that, the more you get it. And I felt I've had a lot more success with quarterbacks writing stuff down more than anything. Even more than doing it. Like writing it down really brings in the understanding of what they're trying to do, what they're trying to accomplish.
100%. I make all my kids read stuff out loud to me. So when they really have to memorize it or really have to remember it, because that locks it in, right? And they'll be able to refer back to it.
I would say this to touch on that. During film I'm huge on asking questions, and I'm huge on them answering it the correct way. Right. So when we're watching film for me, when I'm with the quarterback, I have a certain set of questions that I ask of who the players are, who's guarding the flats, right? If it's zone coverage, man or zone, is the middle field open, is the middle field closed, is it a blitz, is it no blitz, things like that. I go as far as hash, down and distance, play type. I make my quarterbacks break down every aspect of every play. And it really helps them. If breaking down plays really helps them understand, what hash I'm on matters. Being on the hash matters rather than being in the middle of the field, or being on the left middle or being on the right middle can dictate play calling, certain play calls for me and my expectations of what the defense is going to do. So just small things like that. And obviously field position, which is so huge in air raid offense, whether it's backed up, coming out, open field, red zone going in, like understanding where I am on the field as well. Like them verbalizing that, like you said, is just huge for their understanding when watching film. It's huge.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that level of detail, and it's so much fun to see a kid kind of like the light turn on. So you're getting into that level of detail on film. Now, as a OC, put yourself back in that seat. Obviously, there's a lot we want to talk about after the game, and we can get into the nuance. Now, are there like pre-snap questions that you mandate, and maybe that's the wrong word because that sounds really too harsh, but that you want your quarterbacks to think about every single snap? I want you to think about. You've mentioned middle of the field open and close a few times. Like, are there a select few that you say, hey, think about this?
Yeah. There's two things for me: is the middle field open or closed, who's defending the flats. That tells you what that pretty much tells you what the defense is. Now, if it's man coverage, that it is man coverage, there is nobody defending the flats, right? Because everybody's man up, man down. So that's also, so when a quarterback says nobody, when it says nobody, is because it's man coverage, that's also an answer, right? So is the middle field open or closed, and who's defending the flats? That to me, for especially for air raid quarterbacks, is the fastest way to get them to understand. I should say, to get them to into the read of the concept and get them to understand, okay, the ball is probably going to go here before the ball is even snapped. That's been really, really helpful for air raid quarterbacks for me, is like they can pretty much almost dictate, okay, the ball is probably going to go here pre-snap, by knowing those two things: middle field open or close, and who's defending the flats.
Yeah, no, it's huge. And it's so funny because there's so many ways to think about it. And it's all about just getting them, we just said it again, processing. So when they snap the ball, they could already be on that, like, okay, I'm going to check here. But just like you just said, because I know that there's no one in the flats, or there is someone in the flats, I could probably be moving on to that third read much quicker, because that second read is going to be cut, right? So I mean, it's all about processing.
Yeah, because I try to simplify it, because I want their minds to not be thinking as much. I want them just playing football, right? So as quickly as I can get them to that point is what I'm trying to do as a coach, is so, because I want you to also enjoy playing the game at the end of the day, right? Because a lot of quarterbacks can analyze this, analyze that, and I learned this from Peyton Manning, going through his Manning Passing Academy, being one of his counselors, having deep conversations with him, Eli, and Archie. Like you can overanalyze it, and you can almost takes the fun out of it, right? And because eventually, guess what? You got to snap the ball, and you got to go play football. So I never want to lose. I never want my quarterbacks to lose that aspect of just having fun playing the game. So the more I can simplify it, the quicker I can get them to do it.
Yeah, no, and I think it ties right into your love of going tempo and no huddle, because that's when we're at our best, right? We're not thinking about overthinking things. We're just, hey, just the defense. Here's our play. Here's what I got to do. Let's snap it. Okay, here's the defense. Here's our play. Let's go, right? Like, it's just that we could just kind of get into that rhythm and zone in that way. So I love that, Coach. All right, cool. So last two questions at the end of all these podcasts to coaches, just to kind of get their opinion on a few things, and just for other coaches to hear about. Okay. So the first thing I ask people is, like, obviously, what advice you would have for any coach. Obviously we're quarterback minded, but any just great piece of advice you have for a coach out there.
Everything must be taught from scratch and explained patiently in great detail. That's what I would tell coaches. Like, those, if you start with that, like, there's a good chance you'll not make early mistakes.
No, and that's this you've already, this entire interview has been all about the mental side of approaching things, and this is like the whole point of this podcast, and we haven't really talked too much about it before this conversation. So I love it. You're synced in with that so well, and I think the audience will get so much out of that. And then last thing, we've had a lot of really great explanations to this one over the years on my shows, but like, just life is all about overcoming challenges and figuring out ways to get through it, get over it, whatever it is. Like, is there something in your life that you went through that was a tough challenge that you did make it through, and you've come out better because of it? Anything like that you can share with the coaches?
Oh man, so many football stories I could tell. It was just being able, just what I had to go through, just even in middle school ball, high school ball, college, like the triumphs, and pro ball, just the triumphs of dealing with injuries, things like that. There's always going to be adversity, and there's one thing Ron Zook told me as a player during my first couple of years at Florida, which really helped me focus in, is that there's always going to be noise in the system, regardless of how many games you've won or how many games you haven't won. There's always going to be noise in the system, whether it's a parent, a booster, whoever, right? Whoever, a news writer, whoever it is. There's always going to be noise in the system, and you have to make sure that you stay faithful to the process. I think that would be my message, is stay faithful to the process that you have a detailed out process that you believe in, stick with it, and don't let the noise in the system take you off of that, because you've done the work, you've done it, you've taught it from scratch, you've worked it, you've written it out from scratch, you've worked out every detail. Here's what I want to accomplish. Here's the process to accomplish it, and you have to stay faithful to that. And that my faith and has helped me do that hugely throughout my career, and with whenever adversity hit in any kind of type of way. So that would be my advice to when adversity hits, you got to stay faithful to your process that you've worked out detail by detail in order to accomplish what you want to accomplish.
Yeah, that's great advice, Coach. And it rings true to me for sure. And it is in line with how I've gotten through a lot of crazy stuff in my life too. So awesome, Coach. Well, thanks for sharing. I really appreciate it. I know I've taken up a ton. Oh, wow. We were an hour and a half. Sorry, man.
Yeah.
I should have asked you
it's football. It's football, man. Football talk. That's what football does, man. You get lost. You get lost in the world in the whole spectrum, man. But it's awesome. It's awesome to have these conversations, because like I was telling you before, if it helps one person, it's worth it. I would just say keep doing what you're doing, and you're really helping people grow in the game, coast to coast. I'm way over here on the East Coast, and I'm following the things that you're doing. You're really helping coaches who you may never ever meet, in this game. And your resources, the things that you're making available to people, even myself, is really helping ignite a fire in us to be better coaches. And for people that want to start coaching and learn air raid, it's igniting a fire in them to want to start teaching the game that way, which I think is great. I think you should. I'm a type of guy, I want to throw the ball every single play, and I always think the more passing plays we have, the better in the game plan. That's my bias. That's my bias being a quarterback guy. But no, it's just sure. I really appreciate the things that you're doing, and I just want to give you the encouragement to keep doing what you're doing, and because it's really helping out a lot of people.
Thank you so much for listening to our two-part series with Coach Leak. Getting quarterback development perspective from one of the best high school and college quarterbacks of all time is one thing, but for him to be spreading that knowledge with his players and now other coaches like you, the value is tremendous, and I hope you enjoyed it. As always, we'd love for you to follow us on Spotify, and while you're there, drop us a 5-star review, please. And if you are watching this on YouTube, please follow, like, and subscribe. Drop any questions or comments for Coach Leak or myself there, and we'd love to talk ball with you. Once you have done that, you will always be in line and ready for our latest interviews to help us decode the most difficult position in all of sports, right here on the Quarterback Code.